Recently, I faced something no married man should ever need to voice as a fake HOA enforcer struck my wife in the face. Their justification: unauthorized fence elevation that allegedly violated HO visibility regulations. Ironically, the only thing that failed to meet standards was his nose meeting the rest of his features. Allow me to begin from the start. Before we proceed, please share where you're tuning in from today. She collapsed forcefully. No cry, no intake of breath, just the disturbing sound of bone meeting earth packed with vegetation. For a brief moment, everything ceased. Bird calls, wind, my consciousness. There she lay, my spouse, blood flowing from her nose, eyes wide, one hand clawing at the turf as if her mind was attempting to restart reality. The perpetrator loomed above her as though he'd merely issued a parking citation. You're violating regulations, he stated emotionlessly. Section 7, unauthorized fence elevation. Yet this didn't begin with violence. It commenced with me in the garage, partially listening to a podcast. While repairing a hinge we'd received warnings about for excessive structural boldness. I recall thinking that only in this community would a fence be considered threatening. Lena occupied the backyard, yoga mat spread, tranquility mode engaged. She practices this when tensions rise, claiming it soothes her anxiety. I believe she does it more for my benefit than hers. Then came the footsteps, 3 pairs, heavy and deliberate, as if they'd arrived to extract someone rather than measure property boundaries. Black tactical gear, earpieces, HOA insignia that appeared crafted on a home printer by someone who'd never performed a push-up. The voice reached me first: Mom, we require elevation compliance verification. Then Lena's response, calm and dry as that code for vacate my property. That's when I emerged. I witnessed the scene. 3 individuals in uniform cosplay. One clutching a clipboard, another with a chest-mounted GoPro, and Karen from across the street positioned on her porch like she was directing a Law and Order lawn unit episode. You're obstructing perimeter visibility, announced clipboard bearer. Lena rose. We received a notice. We contested it. It's under review. Under review doesn't equal compliance, he replied. Neither does impersonating a public official. He advanced closer. She remained stationary. Then he struck her, right there on the grass. A fully grown male in tactical equipment hit a woman, my wife, for defending a fence. I froze, not from weakness but because I'd experienced this before. Autumn 2011. A rookie in my unit failed to react quickly enough when someone reached for something in their jacket. It cost 2 lives. That moment never departed from me. Now it was recurring. But this time it involved Lena. The wrench slipped from my grasp, clanging once on the concrete. Then I moved. By the time I reached her, she was kneeling, steadying herself. Blood dripped down her lip. She didn't weep or scream. She looked up and said, "That's gonna leave a mark." I turned to the man. "You struck a combat medic for defending a fence." He shrugged. She resisted compliance. Karen's voice drifted in, syrupy and smug. "She's blocking the neighborhood sight line. That's a safety concern." "Karen," I said without turning, "record this next part." Lena spat blood into the grass and stared up at the man. "If you swing at me again," she said, voice low, "I won't wait for reinforcements." The man's bravado faltered momentarily. "Threatening an official," he began. Benji stepped between them, rake at the ready. "You punched a medic, genius. You think we're intimidated by your clipboard performance?" The guy squared up. I didn't move. Lena stood, shook her arms out. "I'm fine." The man retreated a step, perhaps because I advanced forward. "You assaulted a veteran," I said, "own her property without legal authorization, in front of a camera, while wearing an unregistered uniform." He opened his mouth to protest. "You're not enforcing anything. You're pretending." Karen smirked. "We're simply encouraging compliance." "Excellent," I said. "Let me encourage you to depart before you add felony charges to your record." They retreated like bullies who suddenly realized the thin kid knew martial arts. Lena turned to me, still steady. "No," I said, "but they're going to be." That evening I examined the HOA manual, every word, every loophole, every outdated provision. Then I discovered at page 87, section 12C, enforcement representatives must possess written consent of entry signed by the property owner or present formal legal documentation as authorized by a municipal governing body. I read it 3 times. Then I underlined it in red. They lacked a warrant, they lacked consent, and now they lacked understanding of what was approaching. Karen declared war using a bylaw. She made it about fences. Now it was about boundaries, and I was going to demonstrate what happens when she crosses mine. Next stop, paper trail and the trap awaiting at its conclusion. Lena examined the mirror, touched the swelling beneath her eye, and smiled. "That's going to look really attractive in tomorrow's HOA meeting." Her voice was calm, even amused. Half her face was purple, her lips split, one nostril packed with gauze, and she was smirking as if she just won something. I stood behind her, towel in hand, barely breathing. "You're not supposed to look like you enjoyed that," I muttered. She tilted her head, studying the bruise. "I didn't enjoy the punch. I'm enjoying the response." "What response?" "Yours." She was correct. I hadn't stopped trembling since it occurred. Not visibly, but internally. My blood ran like wire, taut, humming, ready to snap. Lena pressed an ice pack to her cheek. "It's interesting. When I was deployed, you learn to identify who's broken by how calm they become." I turned away. "I'm not broken. You're reading bylaws at 300 a.m. with a highlighter and a tactical pen. It's a quality pen." Downstairs, Benji was cooking bacon with the enthusiasm of someone diffusing a bomb made of pork fat. "I made comfort meat. Cow, this is how my people heal." Lena limped in, still in yoga pants and war paint. Benji looked up and nearly dropped the skillet. "Holy crap, you look like a Bond girl post-explosion. Do we get revenge now or after breakfast?" "Soon," she said, sliding into a chair. "John's got a plan." They both looked at me. I held up a dog-eared HO manual the size of a cinder block. Benji groaned. "Of course you do. We got to work. Every bizarre citation, every family forced to sell, every contradictory line in the handbook. I was building something, not just a case, a weapon. I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to make them regret playing. Lena pulled up a spreadsheet. 5 families moved out this year alone. 4 were veterans. Benji nodded. And every one of them cited for different reasons. Fence height, parking orientation, unauthorized seasonal decor. I tapped the whiteboard. The pattern isn't the citation, it's the people. They're targeting folks they think won't fight back. Lena leaned in. Benji smirked. Like angry lawn gnomes of justice. Then Karen appeared in the form of a neighborhood email blast. Subject, Community Harmony Update from HOA Board. Karen, in times of unrest, it's important we preserve the beauty and order of our community. Non-compliance threatens that peace. We must remember safety isn't just about locks and alarms. It's about unity, conformity, trust. She's threatening us in cursive. Benji muttered. That's actually impressive. Lena stared at the screen. She thinks we'll break. That's what she's betting on. She turned to me. You haven't smiled once since it happened. I'm not in a smiling mood. She stepped closer. You're too calm. That scares me more than the punch. I met her eyes, because now it's a game I know how to win. I spent the next 12 hours drafting, filing, digging into county records, fake shell companies, the HOA's budget allocations. At some point, I forgot to eat. Benji tried to distract me with flamingo prank ideas. Lena made grilled cheese with tactical precision, but my mind was locked in. At 11:47 p.m. I found it. An old clause in the original HOA charter. External enforcer shall not operate on private property without express consent or verified emergency orders. It was like finding a buried blade. I whispered. Lena was already asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket in quiet defiance. Benji dozed off next to a printer that kept jamming every third page. I stood in the dark, holding the document like it was sacred scripture. We had them. All I needed now was an audience. The next morning I stepped outside to retrieve the mail. There was no envelope, no HOA letter, just a plain manila folder on the doorstep. Inside, a printout of our fence citation. Stapled to it was a photo, not of our lawn, not of the house, of Lena, taken from the hallway from inside our home. I stared at the grainy image, her back to the camera, just walking. No timestamp, no watermark, and no explanation. My grip tightened, my pulse thudded so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Then I flipped the page, just one line written in red ink. We're always watching. Compliance begins at home. They broke into my house. Not to steal, not to hurt, just to let me know they could. This wasn't about rules anymore. It was about power. And now they were about to lose every ounce of it. I tore the house apart. Not angrily, not even fast, methodically, room by room, inch by inch, looking for holes, shadows, anything out of place. The photo of Lena in the hallway wasn't just a warning. It was proof someone had been in our home. Not to steal, not to plant a bomb, to watch. That made it worse. Predators don't always attack. Sometimes they just circle so you know they're there. I flipped our smoke detectors, removed every outlet faceplate, checked for tiny lenses in the recessed lighting, even cut open the drywall behind our bookshelf, following a gut feeling. Nothing. But the silence after that search. It was deafening. Lena sat at the kitchen island, barefoot, ice on her knee, tracking my movements like a war medic watching someone bleed from the inside. You're spiraling, she said. No, I replied. I'm prepping. A Benji showed up with a bag of gas station snacks and 2 rolls of reflective tape. I brought offerings, he said. Also, if we're about to Fort Knox this place, I want full nerd access. We started building trip sensors, pressure plates, IR overlays. Not overkill, strategy. I rigged a cheap decoy motion sensor to the front mailbox. If someone tripped it, we'd get a silent push alert. The real cameras hidden in garden gnomes and behind our fake bird bath. Not because I liked it, because I needed it, because the moment you realize your home isn't private anymore, you either panic or prepare. That night, 2014 movement. 3 figures, no flashlights, all black. One with a clipboard, one with a bag. One scanning lawns like he was house hunting with night vision. Benji whispered in the headset, why is it always 3 dudes with a clipboard? Is that like HOA doctrine? Oh shh. They moved fast. 2 jumped the neighbor's fence. 1 crouched at our irrigation box. Clipboard guy poured something down the line. Chemical sabotage. HOA warfare. I slid out the side door. Lena flanked the west fence. Benji activated a fake garage floodlight, just enough to freeze them in place. Clipboard guy bolted. The others split. One made it clean over the alley wall. The other I caught. Kid. Couldn't have been more than 20. Not in uniform. Just a gray hoodie and nerves. I pinned him against the fence, one arm twisted behind his back. You with Karen? He squirmed. I'm just part-time, man. I don't know anything. I shoved a flashlight into his eyes. Smile for the camera. Lena stepped into view, holding her phone up. You entered our property, tampered with utilities. That's a felony. He blinked fast. We were told no one lived here full time. My blood iced. Lena didn't flinch. Third party, he muttered. It's a compliance contractor. They get hired to handle removals. I asked. Look, I just spray the stuff and leave. I don't even know her name. Karen. No, he said. The lady in charge. She's just called field lead on our forms. Benji's voice crackled in the headset. Okay, I just cross-checked that company. They filed under 5 different LCs in 3 states. This isn't an HOA, a flipping eviction cartel. I let the kid go next time. I said, I won't be the one asking questions. He ran, vanishing into the dark. Back inside, Lena inspected the irrigation box. Ully. She dabbed it with a rag. Copper sulfate. Root killer. They were poisoning our yard. Long game, she said. Once the plants die, they cite us for neighborhood degradation. I sat down hard. It was about deconstruction. Quiet, slow, one dead tree at a time. At dawn, a new notice appeared on our door: violation vegetative non-compliance, root exposure and ornamental decay. Immediate attention required. Failure to comply may result in enforced remediation. They had the gall to fine us for the sabotage they committed. I actually laughed because it meant one thing: they were starting to panic. Later that night, I reviewed the footage again. Then I noticed something strange. The birdhouse camera, the one I'd found planted in the neighbor's yard, had moved. Its angle no longer faced our home. It faced Karen's. A perfect line of sight into her upstairs office, and the feed still active, still streaming, but not to us. Whoever set it up didn't want to watch us anymore. They wanted Karen. Which meant we weren't the only ones playing this game. And whoever else was watching, they weren't on our side. I followed the signal back through the feed metadata. Not an HOA server, not a neighbor, not even local. It was bouncing through 6 nodes, encrypted. Someone with real resources was watching her. And if Karen was the field lead, then who was the one giving her orders? At 20:36 am, my server pinged me with a red alert. Not from my own system, from someone else's, a mirrored file directory I didn't recognize. Hidden inside a housing app the HOA used for amenity scheduling. It wasn't requesting pool hours, it was tracking us. I cracked the encryption in 11 minutes. I was fast because I was angry, focused because fear sharpens faster than caffeine. Benji was snoring on the couch like a dying leaf blower. Lena was upstairs, asleep in a tank top and bruises. The photo of her from the hallway still burned in my skull. The file was titled Compliance Retention Tier Index. I opened it. Rows of names and addresses, mortgage balances, branch of service. Column C was labeled risk factor high, moderate, low, next to Lena's name. Next to mine, recoverable. And beside that, requires escalation if not vacated by Q3. I didn't breathe for 10 seconds. Then I read line by line: 43 entries, veterans, widows, a few quiet retirees with big equity and small support systems. Most of them I knew. One of them used to teach my son to fish. Another gave out caramel apples at Halloween. A woman 3 doors down bakes cinnamon bread every Sunday. I never asked her name. They weren't rebels. They weren't loud, they were targeted. I stared at one line too long and realized it was my name. Benji shuffled awake and blinked at the screen. Dude, what am I looking at? This isn't an HOA, I said. It's a spreadsheet for soft evictions. Lena appeared in the doorway, holding her phone and wearing the kind of stillness you only learn in combat zones. She glanced once at the screen, then again slower. That's Mrs. Harrow, she said. They made her rip out her rose garden last month. She cried when they took the shovel out of her hands. And look, Benji said, pointing at another row. They ranked her passive acceptant. What does that even mean? It means they thought she wouldn't fight back. Lena whispered. I couldn't look at her. Because the truth was simple and shameful. They weren't wrong. We called a meeting. Not a town hall, not a rally. Just the people already marked. The ones we could still reach before the trap snapped shut. Mr. Alvarez came with 2 folders of his own, complaints he never filed because he thought no one would listen. Mrs. Patel showed up wearing sunglasses and a scarf. She'd been egged last week. She said she didn't want them to know she'd left the house again. The Mitchells walked in like ghosts. No words, just nods. Benji opened his laptop and projected the file onto the garage wall. I stood in front of it like I was briefing a team before a breach. You're all on the list, I said, and they're coming for you next, not with trucks, not with guns, but paperwork, contractors, and legal trapdoors. Alvarez spoke first. How long? Some of you have 2 weeks, others less. Patel looked down at her hands. They told me my lawn statue was spiritually misaligned with community tones. I thought they were just being cruel. They were, Lena said. Benji flipped to a financial tab. They've mapped your equity. They know who can be squeezed quietly and who needs a scare tactic. Alvarez raised a hand. What do they get from this? I said. Most of these homes will flip with a 6-figure margin after foreclosure. Patel shook her head. I thought this was my last home. Lena crossed the room, knelt beside her, and gently took her hand. It still can be. That afternoon, Karen came to our door. No clipboard, no paper smile, just her and something new behind her eyes. Not confidence, desperation. You've been busy, she said. Sorry, I said. Didn't schedule this conversation through the app. She ignored it. I know what you've seen. You mean the evidence? I mean the structure, the system. Her voice dropped. It wasn't supposed to be visible. You hid a for-profit foreclosure racket behind garden bylaws. Don't be dramatic. Lena appeared beside me, arms crossed. Tell that to the widow they labeled pushy. Karen blinked once, and in that one blink I saw the fear. The kind you get when the script runs out. You're a soldier, John, she said. You understand top-down chains. This isn't yours to stop. No, I said, but it's mine to expose. Then she leaned forward and whispered something just for me. They told me if I kept things quiet, I get to keep my home. That was the deal. And who's they, sir? She didn't have to. That night, I reviewed the birdhouse camera feed. Karen's office, still lit, still paced. She was on the phone, frantic now. Her movements no longer queenly, they were prey-like. Then, in the reflection of the window behind her, a man. Not a reflection, presence. Broad-shouldered gray suit, standing still watching her from behind, and on his right hand a ring. Military issue special clearance, identical to the ones worn by top-level briefers when I was stationed at CENTCOM. Lena looked over my shoulder and whispered, no. I said, but I know what he represents. Benji leaned in. So Karen's not running the show. No, I said. She's barely even staff. This wasn't a rogue HOA. It was a vet filtering pipeline, a housing chessboard. And Karen was just the pawn they let feel powerful right before they sacrificed her. And the man in that reflection, he wasn't part of the HOA. He was part of something federal. Next move was ours. Karen knew I was coming. She just didn't know how loud I'd be or how many people would follow me through that door. I didn't wait for the meeting to start. I didn't take a seat. I walked right down the center aisle like I owned the place. Because for the first time I did. Not legally, but morally, everyone in that room knew the truth had finally shown up. Karen stood behind her little podium, draped in lavender and fake grace. Microphone clipped on as seal behind her, but her face, that smile, was fighting to hold its shape. She saw Lena first, then me, then the folder in my hand. "John," she said, voice smooth, "if you'd like to speak during open comments, we'll get to that shortly." "Sure," I said, "right after we expose your racketeering." That got her. A few neighbors gasped. A woman near the snack table dropped her lemon bar. Benji flicked his phone and the projector behind Karen glitched, then burst into the spreadsheet. The list: names, addresses, mortgage balances, risk factors. Every eye turned toward the screen. Karen's mask slipped, not shattered but dented. "I don't know where this came from," she began. Lena stepped forward. "You wrote on it." She held up the printed margin. "Check status of lot 312. Wife is pushy." A man in the third row stood. "That's my house." A younger woman near the back raised her hand, trembling. "My mom's name's on there too," she said. "She passed away 2 months ago." But the citations kept coming. "You billed her for a lawn she hadn't stepped on in weeks." One man cursed under his breath. Benji muttered, "She's not just stealing homes. She's billing corpses." Karen's hands fluttered, helpless. "We don't control the billing process. That's your signature," I said, clicking the projector. A blown-up PDF filled the screen, digital, time-stamped, ugly. Karen started. "This has been taken out of context." "Put it back in," I said. "Tell us what context justifies targeting veterans and widows for financial extraction." Silence. Then another voice. "She fined me 4 times for my mailbox paint." "And me," a woman added. "Said my garden gnome was behaviorally inappropriate." Benji whispered, "I don't even know what that means." Karen cleared her throat. "The HOA exists to preserve order, protect property values, and ensure a welcoming environment." "Welcoming for who?" Lena said. No response, so I answered for her. "For people who don't ask questions, for buyers who won't challenge forged citations or mysterious fines." I stepped away from the screen, turned to the crowd, and held up the folder. "Everything in here," I said, "was built to break you." Quietly, legally, with a smile. A murmur swept through the room. Not just outrage, but clarity. You could feel it, the snap. They weren't afraid anymore. Alvarez stood. "Is this why my last appeal got lost?" Mrs. Patel rose next. She told me my front steps were a hazard. Then the HOA offered to buy me out. Karen looked around the room. She had no friends left. Just neighbors she'd manipulated for years and suddenly couldn't control anymore. Then she tried a different angle. "I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe, secure, stable." Tears welled up, fake, controlled. "I didn't want to do this, but there are people above me." "We do?" I said. "You made sure we all felt it." The treasurer stood. "I'm done," he said. "I never agreed to any of this." The secretary followed. "You told us this was about safety." "This is fraud." Karen reached out as they walked away. "Please don't let him twist." "No one twisted anything but the bylaws," the treasurer shot back. Then I walked to the projector and switched to the second file. Emails in her name, contract authorizations, confidentiality clauses, payout structures. Lena read them aloud one by one. By the third, half the room was filming. By the fourth, 2 board members walked out. Karen backed away from the podium slowly. "I need a break." "You need a lawyer," Lena said. The room broke into scattered applause, not wild, just solid. Everyone finally exhaled after holding their breath for a year. Back home we sat in silence. No celebration, no high fives, just relief. Benji typed quietly. Facebook stream hit 27,000. Reddit's already grabbing clips. Lena sat cross-legged on the floor, ice pack beside her. "You okay?" I asked. She looked up. Not yet, but she was close. Then knock at the door. We all stood, but it wasn't for us. 2 blocks over, a black sedan rolled to a stop outside Karen's house. 2 men stepped out, not police, not city code, federal. They walked up her driveway. Karen answered in her robe, smile already dialed in. "Can I help you?" One of them opened a badge. We couldn't hear what they said, but we saw what they did. They stepped inside, uninvited, unstoppable. Karen didn't stop them because some queens don't go out screaming. They go out in silence. That night I got an email. No subject, no sender, just one sentence: "Nice work, ready for the next round." And below it, a file labeled Tier 2 Active Development Zones. There were dozens of neighborhoods, and Oak Gate was just the prototype. I didn't know what was worse, the fact someone sent me a classified surveillance file, or the fact they had footage of me opening it before I even hit play. That's not a metaphor. There I was on screen, in my kitchen from a camera I didn't install. I hadn't even broken the encryption yet, and whoever sent the file already had the sequel. The email had no name, no subject, just a single sentence: "Nice work, ready for the next round, attached Tier 2 Vault, MP4. The file was locked behind 5112-bit encryption, military grade. Not the kind your average Reddit sleuth could crack. The kind that says, "You were never supposed to see this." Benji sat beside me, chewing on a pen cap like it was a grenade pin. "Please tell me this is a phishing joke." "Nope." "Then tell me you're opening on a burner rig and not the home Wi-Fi." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a Faraday case slotted in a drive with no OS tether, and fed the file through 3 layers of sandbox to decrypt. It opened slower than it should have, almost like it didn't want to be found. What we saw when it did changed everything. Karen in her home office, nighttime. No clipboard, no pastel intimidation, just her alone, staring at a glowing laptop. Her voice sounded small or nervous. Then the man spoke, not on screen, not local. The kind of voice that never shows up in public records. "We're behind on Oak Gate. Lot 312 was scheduled last quarter. Karen, they filed an appeal. I couldn't push without it looking suspicious." Her relevant, the wife's flagged high interference. Former military medic classification, that's unstable optics. I need more time. Board 7's already blown. Phelan was compromised, we need clean transitions. Karen hesitated. There's a kid on the property. Then write the narrative, safety hazard, structural rot. You know how to make it stick. Lena flinched. I hit pause. Benji let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Jesus, Lena didn't move. Play it again, she said, voice flat. I pressed play. We signed off on Reverben, Karen muttered. I lost sleep over that. Reverben was a beta test. Oakgate is a corridor acquisition. Your task is to transition resistance or vacate your position. You promised me protection. Deliver results, and you'll be static, then silence. Later that day I drove 2 counties over to a contact I hadn't seen in years. Foster, former JHX military legal, still smoked indoors, still didn't blink. He watched the tape 3 times, no expression. Then he leaned back, lit his cigarette, and said, this isn't a fraud. This is organized displacement of protected class citizens under the guise of regulatory enforcement. In English, you've got felony conspiracy row. If you release this, you won't just burn the HOA. He tapped the screen. You'll burn whoever's above her. You think we should sit on it? I think you'd better be ready when the pushback comes. Whistleblowers don't always get applause. Sometimes they get audited, or disappeared. Lena stood. We're already being watched. He didn't argue. Then start documenting chain of custody, source verification. And whatever you do, don't let this vanish into hearsay. The neighborhood BBQ was Lena's idea. No signs, no flyers, no HOA oversight, just folding chairs, music, and a projector pointed at a garage door. Benji wired up the video. I didn't introduce it, we just played it. Karen's voice echoed through the coal, D-sack, calm, calculated. Then the man's voice, flat and surgical, told her to write the narrative. Mrs. Patel dropped her drink. A kid across the street whispered, that's our fence. A woman gasped when she saw her late husband's name listed on a printed document we passed out. He died last year, she whispered. They still cited him for having unauthorized foliage. No one cheered when the video ended. They just stood there shock, finally seeing what we'd all been standing on, a trap. That night, a second message arrived. This one had a named Director Van. It read, your tape just kicked a hornet's nest. We're not the only ones watching. Watch your 6. Attached one photo. A black SUV, parked across the street from my house. Lights off, windows tinted. Zoom in. Inside the reflection of the windshield, faint but visible, was a lit phone screen. And on that screen, a paused video of me sitting at the kitchen table. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not because I was scared, because I finally understood something. Karen was never the queen. She was the bait. And whatever was behind that camera was coming next. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, because I couldn't stop picturing that phone screen in the reflection. Paused on me in my kitchen, doing nothing, completely unaware. That's the kind of image that doesn't keep you up. It rewires you. Because if they had that shot, what else did they have? We argued in the kitchen. Benji wanted to pack up and vanish for a week. No shame in playing ghost, he said. This isn't your average HOA vendetta. This is black bag territory. Lena disagreed. We don't run, she said, tying her hair back. We flushed them out. I didn't say anything at first, just stared at the photo again. Same SUV, same angle, same arrogance. You know what this reminds me of? I finally said. Kandahar? The convoy that never turned their lights off. Just drove through the valley like they owned it. Benji frowned. What happened to them? They exploded, Lena smiled. So we set a trap. I became the bait. 8:50 a.m. I stepped out the front door with a coffee mug and a fat manila envelope tucked under my arm. Benji watched from the roof. Lena followed at a distance, hoodie up, sleeves rolled. The envelope, empty except for a note written in Sharpie. Hope you're enjoying the view. I walked 1 block, took 2 lefts, and ducked into the hardware store. Benji whispered in the comms. They bit engine on. Turning around the corner now. The SUV circled twice before easing to a stop outside the store. Tinted windows, same vehicle, same silent menace. Drivers late 40s, Benji said, trim, military posture, aviators like a textbook, passengers mask,